welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET&R's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center in every industry and every area that matters to you. Tonight, we're bringing you the highlights of an event and panel discussion that my colleague Pooja Jain did in Chandigarh earlier. The theme was Chandigarh successfully straddling the public and private sector. We do 20 such roadshows pan India to reach every corner of the country and to speak directly with MSMEs, the only show to do so. And we get the biggest and the most relevant speakers across the board in every city to speak on topical themes. Take a look at a slice of that event earlier.
Leaders of Tomorrow is a platform brought to you by the Times Network that has become a springboard of sorts for micro, small, and medium enterprises across the country. In this complex era, leadership and management methodology in particular has become as much an art as a science. So we thought that we'd take the opportunity to kick off the evening with some opening remarks by our valued partner and the Executive Director of LMI India, Ashok Tusu. Please join me in welcoming Sir on stage.
Thank you, Pooja. It's a pleasure to be in this lovely city of Chandigarh. Every time I come here, I feel so good. And you, all of you who live in Chandigarh, really are blessed. I want to talk to you about leadership. All these opportunities which are coming in this private-public ecosystem which has evolved now require, first, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial skills. And I do believe that in this area where we are in Punjab, in Chandigarh and Haryana, the entrepreneurial capability is huge. But by that, it is not enough by itself. You require leadership skills, and leadership skills of a different kind. And we have several leadership programs which work across these levels. We have programs on personal productivity, which is the Role Model Leader program. We have a program on personal leadership, which is the integrity and honesty-based emotional end program. We have a motivational leadership program, and finally we have a strategic leadership program. We have worked with a large number of companies in India, public sector, across very large organizations, but a very huge number of our clients come from the small and medium sector. And we have found that our programs have the most impacting and best effect on entrepreneurs, owner-managers, and their teams. At the end, I would like again just to reiterate that there is one thing where this needs to change, has to change, and that is your mindset. If you do not change your mindset, then nothing will change. On the other hand, they say, if you change the way you look at things, then things start changing.
Now, one very interesting fact about Chandigarh is that it has amongst the highest per capita incomes in the entire country. And yet, government is the largest employer. And, you know, Naveen, I'd like to start with you. Is there an apparent contradiction there? How do you explain that?
Basically, Chandigarh was meant for 500,000 population. We are close to now 1.5 million. So there's a lot of government support, all right. We need to involve Panchkula, we need to involve Mohali for the inclusive growth. Because in isolation, Chandigarh just has about 110 square kilometers of area. We are landlocked.
You know, aside from government, metals and machinery are considered to be, you know, the largest employers in this city. What sort of opportunities does that then present to MSMEs, or are those winner-take-all industries?
Very interesting question indeed. Whatever Naveen has said is absolutely fine. But I'd like to divide the industry and the ecosystem of Chandigarh in two parts. The old part of which Naveen elaborated, and the new part of it, which in my opinion emanates predominantly from the fresh minds like this gentleman sitting here. You have 26 global institutions sitting in the Tri-City, predominantly Mohali, and then you've got the likes of Punjab University and PEC, which are absolutely outstanding academia. So there is a huge connect between the public sector, which is the government, which is the largest employer, as you rightly said, as also the fact that they need to act as a facilitator to bring up the front-ending young minds for a startup initiative like that of Mr. Bhatia. And you'll hear more from him on that particular aspect.
Did you receive government support in the context of the business you've built?
Yes, the government had started now. Earlier, the situation was different. I'm being a part of the CI Punjab Council. I'm heading that startup council. So we really able to convince the government that, startup is the future. I was just reading the article from the Google MD just few days back. He was saying that by 2013, Indians will be known by .com. So, see, we are issue is that, technologies, we are very far away from US or China. The major reason is, our per capita income is very less. Going online or, buying capacity is more with those people. That's why, so we are very far. Government has to push the upcoming startup.
Well, Vineet, every effort starts at home, clearly. And so as startup proposals come your way, what do you see out there? How promising does it look? And just give us some statistics. How many proposals have you reviewed in, say, the last 18 months? And how many of them ultimately developed and reached the term sheet stage?
In terms of, the startup, the kind of proposals that we get on month-on-month basis, our secretariat is, evaluating close to 200 proposals every month to shortlist 4 to 5, who then present to our investors. When it comes to, the term sheet stage, I think, that's the trickiest part, right? Because all the investors today are more or less looking out for meaningful, startups, the startups which are doing something meaningful, right? So in the last 2 years of starting Chandigarh Angels Network, we have invested in 12 startups, which is like an average of 1 startup every 2 months. So you can just imagine, the term sheet execution, when it reaches to term sheet execution and the final set of dispersal of, the money, it's very less. The amount of startups who make it to that stage is very less.
Absolutely, and I have a follow-up question there, and I'd like to bring Vivek in. So Chandigarh is, of course, known for its urban planning, for its robust, a public infrastructure. As a result, does private infrastructure take a backseat in this city?
See, there's a little story attached to this. Chandigarh was always envisaged as a capital city, a bureaucratic city. As Chandigarh evolved, the aspirations of the youth came into the picture. But industrial growth is a journey, and it's an evolving journey. Cities evolve. Industrial growth evolves. So Chandigarh, from a bureaucratic city, is becoming a business city. It's still a work in progress. What is happening to Chandigarh is it's in the throes of evolving, but the public sector is still very much entrenched. And the services sector is something that has been promoted by the government, has been facilitated. That Chandigarh's growth is happening at the right pace. People who used to leave Chandigarh for jobs don't have to now, because the Chandigarh dilemma, I call it, was that do you adopt Chandigarh for its quality of life, or do you go to Bombay or Delhi with lesser quality of life, but more opportunities for jobs? That is being redressed to some extent by the IT park, as he said, by some other developments as well, but we still have a long way to go. And Chandigarh, Panchkula, Mohali, the entire region need to develop in cohesion.
Of course, we need legislation at a state level, but if we were to look at legislation that has occurred at a national level, if we were to look at Make in India, for example, right? I think you're very much a reflection of that through your business. What sort of doors has that opened up for you, and what are the ground realities of the implementation of Make in India?
Which is a very contemporary question in the sense that Make in India was one of the boldest initiatives, besides the demonetization and GST of late. It took off like this It opened up a lot of doors. The states are competing with one another big time, believe you me. If I was to make my intent known anywhere in the government corridors, saying that, look, I have 100 crore or 1,000 crore investment, I'll get 40 calls from so many states, everybody going for you. But believe you me, the sense of competitiveness which is brought in through the Niti Aayog, with whom I interact pretty closely, right? And the PMO push has given it that momentum, has brought about, as Vivek rightly pointed out, that, rather than obstructors versus the facilitator role. I keep going to China very often, and in China, believe you me, they are the biggest facilitators of business anywhere in the world, and that's why they are the second largest economy today in such a short time. Now, we're nowhere near that, but we're beginning to make baby steps there, thanks to the initiative of the Prime Minister, who's more like a, Pradhan Sevak and CEO of the country rather than being a Prime Minister.
Great to hear that optimism. And I think, a critical part of this whole public infrastructure puzzle is the academia. And we have several young faces in the audience. They're looking to shape their careers, take critical decisions in their careers. And what I'd like to know is that, does there need to be more done in an academic setting to help fuel this ecosystem of entrepreneurship in this city and in this state? And Naveen, my question is for you.
We must have more incentives for startups and welcoming, although the government is doing, the administration is doing in their 2030 this plan. It's there. The stress is on logistics is there. Universities, they want to have more colleges and universities. So with time, I think we should have this Chandigarh as a stress on tertiary sector.
Time for a break. On the other side, we'll continue bringing you the highlights of a ground event that we did in Chandigarh. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're bringing you highlights of a panel discussion that we did in Chandigarh earlier. Take a look.
Well, the next step beyond investing, right, is, of course, growing the business, maturing the business. So do you think the city requires more incubators, accelerators, such that, once an idea is born, it can reach a stage where it becomes a viable business model? Vineet.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, starting more and more incubators or, co-working spaces altogether in the city. It's about imparting the right set of knowledge, which is required, right? So I think infrastructure alone cannot really solve all the problems. It is the mindset which has to be improvised, which has, the knowledge, the right set of knowledge that startup education needs to be in place. And I think, that can evolve very well with the right set of public-private kind of partnership, and I'm sure that's going to happen one day.
The nation, in an era where the next generation is reluctant to join the family business, and yet on the flip side, there isn't an ecosystem for them to reach their maximum potential. What do you suggest?
I think this question would apply to Chandigarh in a very large measure. So to that extent, it's a beautiful question. See, what typically happens is, let's say, for example, Chandigarh. In spite of the fact that you have such wonderful academia here, age-old, very reputed, globally acknowledged, I don't know, very many of you know about the fact that 80% of the grads and postgraduates and doctorates do not work in and around Chandigarh, which means the states of Haryana, Punjab, Himachal. And Himachal has lots of industry for tax exemptions. With GST gone, it's all over, kind of. Still, we are not able to retain the talent. Why? The reason is pretty simple and straight. We don't have the ecosystem. Why is it that in startups, Bangalore is right up there, to a very large extent, Gurgaon, and Noida for that matter, and Kerala, it's such a small state, chaotic state for that matter, still attracts lots and lot of startups. Why? Because the entrepreneurship, right, which is available in plenty, as was said by the earlier speaker here, in Punjab in particular, most entrepreneurial state, but you don't have the ecosystem. You don't have the public and the private working together. when you reach out to youngsters in this academic institution, which I do pretty often, particularly in ISP, I check with these folks, what is it which will make you, stay back here and create value for Chandigarh? They said, if we have slight bit of facilitation and a kind of a bit of a assurance that should we fail, there's somebody who's going to give you that net to escape. If even 10% of the institution provide that ecosystem, provide that safety net to the youngsters here, things can dramatically change, and Chandigarh, as you rightly said, can straddle across the public sector and the private sector.
Vineet, one thing that is working for Chandigarh is the low cost of operating, which presumably means that businesses can operate in bootstrap mode for a lot longer than in other cities. Are we cashing in on that advantage?
If you compare Chandigarh, with any other city, metro city, tier 1 city, the operation cost here is way less as compared to any other, metro tier 1 city.
Chandigarh makes for a fascinating demographic study in that, 97% of the city's population is considered urban, with fewer than 3% categorized as rural. So, Vivek, does that make for a rich demographic dividend from an investment standpoint?
See, Chandigarh has a demographic dividend which is urban-centric, there's no doubt. There are only 6 panchayats here. And we had started a program called eSampark, which is basically government's single window service delivery. So most of them are urban centers. Some of them are in the villages in the periphery. But what happens in Chandigarh is that you get good educated population, you get young people, you get Panchkula, Mohali in the mix, and then, and Parvanu and Zirakpur, Derabasi. But more than that, it is the fact that the quality of life is so good that people who are working here are more productive. This is a factor which hasn't been touched too often. People here, young people, well-educated, with good ecosystems, are productive. We need to retain the talent. We need to, as some of the members said, get the government to do a little more in creating that confidence building. And the smaller startups, they just need a little backup.
Very fascinating takeaways from this discussion that I'm going to take with me when I go back to Bombay. So a huge round of applause for all of our panelists, please. But this conversation is really intended for you, the audience. We truly consider you to be a part of the Leaders of Tomorrow extended family. So at this time, I'd like to open up the floor for question and answer.
My name is Tanvi, and I'm pursuing MBA from Punjab University. Like each and every panelist said that academics and education plays a very important role in making a leader. But according to me, what I am experiencing as I'm pursuing MBA, that government is focusing only on the main institutions like IIMs or IITs. It's very annoying that only the students from IIMs, they are only known as the good leaders. It's not that the person who's not in IIM, he or she cannot become a good leader or a good entrepreneur. So what government should do about this?
You creating disruption in my mind, coming from IIM Ahmedabad. All right. See, let me tell you, we fought just about a year ago, tooth and nail, all across the world, mind you, for government not to control IIMs. Point number one clarification. IIMs are all autonomous. There is no government control. Government is an investor, but a minority investor. Point number one. Point number two is that, you see, when IIM Ahmedabad started way back in early 70s, right, we had absolutely nothing. Vikram Sarabhai started the institute with a few donations and stuff and whatever, right? It's basically the brand which creates a space for itself. I am very closely associated with Punjab University. I take at least 3-4 youngsters like you every year, and I have lots of them. Some of them have left and done amazingly well elsewhere, right, after having left us. The amount of value creation you folks are doing is incredible. In no small measure, I can assure you, not that I'm trying to pamper you, I'm trying to assure you that you guys are as good, if not better, than most of the institutions in the country outside of the top 50, whatever's that. You guys right there. What really needs to be done, again here, is the moot point that we talked about industry. Because there is lesser industry here, right, you guys get relatively lesser opportunity. So I'm sure as we go along, and this could be a trigger point, this particular conference or deliberation, for more and more of such funds, venture funds, people like us who can invest many more in Chandigarh. Chandigarh is a very rich city. Sooner or later, they'll come forward, trust you, give you a safety net, and get you going.
Please, can we get him a mic?
I'm Colonel Huda. I'm associated with the Educational Institute now, heading a management department in Chandigarh group of colleges. In my college also, every year we do entrepreneurship program, development program. And the gray area, there, we find that I have also gone through schooling, college life, MBA, thereafter doctorate. We in our colleges and schools, we never talk of entrepreneurship. There is just no talk. So the culture to develop entrepreneurship among our children, right from the beginning, from school level to the undergraduate level to the postgraduate level, that has to carry on right from the beginning.
The state government, Punjab state government is, they are making a startup policy. So I'm part of this team. I categorically told them that we have to start entrepreneurship from 6th standard onwards. So I'm pushing the government for this.
My 45 to 50% of my batch from IIM Ahmedabad went to Silicon Valley, and each one of them is a multimillionaire and now a billionaire, right? US and Europe provided the ecosystem and the encouragement and the motivation. The spirit of entrepreneurship, the capitalism of US and Europe stimulated and incentivized people to go ahead, try, forget the academia, and try things out the bold way.
That wraps up tonight's show. If you have any feedback for us or want to know which city we're heading to next, you can always write to us at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. Tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now. That's our official Twitter handle. On Facebook, we're at Leaders of Tomorrow and ET now. You can also call us on that number you see on your screen. We love hearing from you. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.